Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Thomas DeSchutter, author of Bloom Your Money, Your Life. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Paul, thank you so much for having me.
We are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, let's, I'm an open book, as they say. No pun intended.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Map out a plan of main theme ideas and then break that down into smaller theme ideas and build from that way.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think, well, I self-published, so I'm not sure about the idea of bringing somebody else on to do that. I will say the hardest thing about getting published is probably motivating yourself to write when you don't feel like it, to put in the work when it feels like a grind.
Absolutely. It's all about the habit, right?
Yeah, and that's, I think it's like anything that's worth doing. It's not always easy to build in the daily activities or the weekly routines, however it looks, in order to get to the end or to get to that finished prize.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Well, locally, what I did is I leveraged a lot of my friends, family, clients, business partners, the Chamber of Commerce, people that I knew, and I held a launch party with food and beverage and entertainment and brought people out to support the launch of the book and to purchase their own copy, have a signing session, et cetera, and just build some local momentum and then have people share their thoughts back on the book.
I love that you mentioned that. Personally, I'm a big fan of having lunch parties as well. That's something we always recommend to our publishing clients, because the thing is, book signings are nice, but book signings don't really get people excited. What gets person excited is a launch party, because you have different elements there. It's more laid back. You've got food. You've got cold frosty beverages. So tell us a little bit more about hosting a launch party and how you put that together.
So I had my staff assist me, and of course my biggest fan, my amazing wife Leslie, who supports me on all of these ventures. And we did things like we made it absolutely imperative that it was a full family event, so that kids would come out. So we had an actual area for kids entertainment, face painting, etc., games to play. We also had a fun photo booth, and so we brought somebody in to do that, where we had costumes and we had props and gimmicks that people could use to take photos with their friends or their family or whoever they brought along with them. And we just tried to really make it something where, exactly as you said, people could just be relaxed and let themselves loose a little, and know that they didn't have to get child management, so they could bring their kids with them, and it would be a family affair where everybody was able to come. There was nobody that was excluded.
What did you do in regards to programming for the evening? I know you mentioned that you had this area for being family friendly, which I think is just absolutely ingenious. But what about the actual programming itself? Did you have any type of author panel, or what type of event did you tie in with that?
No, what we did is, the book was about finance, personal finance, and I've been in that industry for 2 decades now. And so there was the opportunity for me just to do a talk not on finance, but do a talk on why I did the book at this stage of my career, and just share a little more openly about who I am and be vulnerable and let people see a side of me that maybe they didn't know existed because they saw me in a certain business format all the time. And
Excellent.
that was it. And as far as the family went, we brought in a clown, we brought in professionals that knew how to be with kids, that had background checks. So we were very mindful of making sure that whoever was going to be, and I do recommend this for anybody, that whoever was going to be in charge of the kids had a background check and had that in their expertise, so that the parents could feel safe, knowing that their kids were going to be taken care of. Although they were visible and in the same room, we wanted to ensure that there was that level of comfort.
You know, as someone who was a teacher for 9 years, I think that's one of the smartest thing that you can do is getting background checks. Because anytime that we ever work with volunteers, that was the first thing that we wanted to know, and the parents as well. So I'm glad that you also looked into that. It's very smart.
Yeah, and I took that from I was a ice hockey coach for my girls when they played ice hockey, and that is mandatory.
Yeah.
That background checks are done, and there's all sorts of great guidelines that I guess entered my thinking from that experience about how to make sure that it's always a safe place for kids and that parents can feel safe.
How long was your a party for?
I believe it was planned for 3 hours. I think it went 4.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I ask is what we did a year ago, well, last summer, is we have a multi-author book that we do every year now. And we had this big book launch party at Texas Live, where they have a lot of these different live places now across the United States. There's one in LA, they've got one in St. Louis, where it's typically parallel from the big ballpark or football stadium. And we had 100 people at Texas Live during that event. We did an author panel. We had some opportunities there where people could meet the fellow authors and everything. But it was nice. It was laid back. People could order a cold frosty beverage. They could order food. It was just a really nice laid back thing. And I love the fact that you've taken that even to the next level with making it family friendly, with having the face paintings, the photo booths, and having a clown, but most importantly, you had the background checks. Because that's the one thing, when you want people to come out, one of the biggest challenges is, well, I have kids, can I bring them with me? And what you've done is like, yeah, not only can you bring them with you, we've also got some activities for them to do. And by the way, the people that we have, they've been background checked, so there's no risk with your kids.
Yeah, and I think that comes from, my own kids were going to be there as well, and they're just turning into teenagers now. So when we launched, they weren't teenagers yet, and so yeah, that experience for me just said, hey, I want my kids to be here. This is a big moment for me. I don't want I don't want to be leaving them at home, and so it really spawned the idea of, well, let's just make it a family event.
Nice. And then where did you do the events?
So we rented actually one of the oldest community halls that had a lot of character in Vancouver, and we wanted something that had character and had a vibe to it, like an energy. So it wasn't just something that was very corporate feeling or stagnant. We really wanted something that had a feeling of community to it, because the business that we operate is very community focused, and we wanted to I guess bring that into everything we do, as well as something like the book launch, as to have people go, as soon as they entered in, we wanted them to feel like it was a place for everybody to be.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Oh, oh man. My favorite book. Oh my gosh.
It's a whopper.
I know. I think I have many. I'm currently reading The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, 1910, and it's fantastic. I love it. But I think my favorite book that had the biggest impact on me was, I read Atlas Shrugged in grade 10. And I think the whole idea of being able to direct my life, and the freedom to direct my life, and the right to direct my life, left a lasting imprint on me at that age. And that has stayed with me ever since, that I want a society where I can have that right to life, if you will. So in answering your question, I'd have to say that that book probably had the biggest impact on me.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Well, right now it is, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. And that actually comes from Wallace D. Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich. And it's my favorite quote because I firmly believe that we have the ability to create our lives, and it starts with our thoughts and turning our thoughts into actions.
What the mind of man can conceive and believe it will achieve. W. Clement Stone.
Yes.
One of my all-time favorite quotes. Excellent. Well, Thomas, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Best way is at two ways. bloomstrategies.com. That's BLOOM strategies.com. And also thomasdeschutter.com. And DeSchutter is DESCHUTTER.com.
Thomas, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Paul, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.